Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mrs. Johnson, and I am here tonight to read you a news story. In light of what's going on, I thought a story other than Frankenstein was more appropriate. And I came across this. It was one of my favorites when I was in high school. It's called The Swiss Family Robinson. And it's about a family that essentially has to shelter in place and how they overcome a crisis and stick together. And I thought it was really appropriate for what's going on right now. Um, so with no further ado, I'd like to begin reading you the story, and I will try and update it a couple times a week. I hope you guys are all safe and happy um, and staying together. And I can't wait till I see you all again. I hope you reply to Flipgrid so I can see you. Um, until we meet again.
Chapter 1 Shipwrecked. Many years ago, my family left Switzerland and boarded a ship bound for the sparkling blue waters of the Pacific Ocean. Our destination was an island near New Guinea, where we were to establish a colony. Along the way, we ran into a violent storm. For 6 days, the wind howled and tore at the sails, while the waves pounded against our little wooden ship, tossing it high into the air. On the 7th day, the mast ripped apart and fell into the sea. Several leaks appeared, and the ship began to fill with water. Realizing that the storm had driven us far off course, the frightened sailors fell to their knees in prayer. "You mustn't be afraid," I said to my 4 sons, Fritz, 15, Jack, 13, Ernest, 11, and Francis, 8, who clung to me trembling. "God will save us, for nothing is impossible to him." My wife, Elizabeth, wiped away her tears and reassured our sons that we would survive this crisis. I admired her courage, but my heart was heavy as I led my family in prayer. "Land ahoy! Land ahoy!" cried a sailor. At that same moment, the ship crashed into a large rock, sending everyone on board reeling in all directions. Then we heard a large crack as if the whole ship were falling apart. Suddenly, the sea came rushing in. "All is lost!" shouted the captain in his booming voice. "Into the boats, men!" As the terrified sailors rushed by us, Elizabeth and the children looked at me in wide-eyed amazement. "Stay calm," I said. "There is no reason to panic. First of all, the water hasn't reached us yet. And secondly, we are near land. Wait here in the hold while I go to see what is the best thing to do." On deck, one wave after another knocked me down. When I finally struggled to my feet, I was greeted by a scene of utter disaster. The ship was completely shattered, and there was a large gaping hole in one side where the water was rushing in. The crew had just cut loose the ropes of the boats and were pushing off into the churning sea. "Come back!" I shouted, but the angry ocean drowned out my cries. Soon the boats disappeared from sight. My only consolation was that since the ship's stern was lodged between 2 rocks, we were safe for the time being. Peering through the rain, I could make out the dim outline of land in the distance. With luck and the change of tide, we should be able to reach shore sometime tomorrow, I told my solemn sons when I went below. "Come, let's eat some dinner," Elizabeth added bravely, sensing my anxiety. "We have a long night ahead of us." Fritz, my eldest son, who realized the danger we were in, sat up long after his brothers fell asleep. "I've been thinking," he said. "If only we had some life jackets, we could swim to shore." "Good idea, Fritz," I answered. "Let's see what we can find to make them with." In the kitchen, we uncovered some small wooden butter tubs. We tied these together 2 by 2 using towels. When we were finished, we had made 6 life jackets. Delighted with his accomplishments, Fritz curled up near his brothers and fell into a sound sleep. Elizabeth and I, fearing that each strange sound might spell disaster, kept a prayerful watch throughout the long night. The first rays of morning light awakened the boys, and they rushed up on deck to see a bright sun shining over the Pacific.
Hey families, this is where we're going to stop for today. One thing I might do if we were in class is to maybe have some spray bottles to where they could, you could spray your students' hands so they could feel what the water's like. You might even mix up a little salt and water and let them taste what seawater might taste like. You could play them sound effects of waves crashing, of what thunder and lightning sounds like. Those are the kinds of uh, tactile and sensory things that we would be doing with these first couple of pages. And just reiterate, guys, that the characters that we're working with is the father, Mother Elizabeth, son, Fritz, Ernest, Francis, and Jack. Those are what I would be doing if we were in class, is just going over those characters again. And that's it. I will pick this back up tomorrow.